towards
Yeah.
supporting, sustainable practices.
Exactly. They want to support businesses that are doing the right thing for the planet.
Okay, so it's like giving consumers a superpower.
It is.
The power to
Vote with their wallets.
Exactly.
For a more sustainable future.
Okay, that's cool.
And companies are recognizing this shift in consumer behavior. They're realizing that sustainability is not just good for the planet.
Right.
It's also good for business.
Right, because consumers will pay more for it.
Exactly. Consumers are willing to pay a premium for products that are produced ethically and sustainably, and they're more likely to be loyal to brands that share their values.
It's like a win-win-win.
It is.
It's good for the planet.
Yeah.
It's good for business.
Yeah.
And it's good for the consumer.
Exactly.
Okay, but agentic marketing goes beyond just providing information.
It does.
It's about creating like an experience.
Yeah, it's about creating engaging and interactive experiences for consumers.
So how are they doing that?
So companies are using things like augmented reality, virtual reality, and even gamification to educate consumers about sustainability and connect with them on an emotional level.
Gamification. Okay, so we're talking like a video game where you're like a farmer or something.
Imagine a mobile game where you're a farmer managing a virtual farm. You have to make decisions about which crops to plant, how to manage your resources, and even how to market your products.
Wow.
And through the game, you learn about the challenges and rewards of sustainable farming, and you're more likely to make those choices in the real world.
That's pretty cool. It's like sneaking in a little education.
It is, yeah.
While you're playing a game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But agentic marketing isn't just about appealing to individual consumers. It's also about building trust and transparency across the entire food system.
Right.
So companies are using blockchain technology to create immutable records of their sustainability practices, making it impossible to greenwash or make false claims.
So you can't cheat the system.
Exactly.
It's all right there on the blockchain.
It's all transparent for everyone to see, and this builds trust with consumers, investors, and even regulators, creating a level playing field where sustainability is rewarded.
So it's like a lie detector test for sustainability. Okay, cool. So to kind of wrap up this section of our deep dive, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, which is the whole deep learning and the CNNs.
Right.
Because I still don't quite understand how those work.
Sure. So convolutional neural networks, or CNNs, are a type of deep learning algorithm that are particularly good at analyzing visual data like images.
Okay, so they're like the eyes of the AI, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, they're the eyes of the AI, helping it see and understand what's in those satellite images.
What?
CNNs can be trained to recognize patterns and features in images, like different types of crops, signs of disease, or even the presence of individual trees.
Oh, wow. So they can tell the difference between like an oak tree and a maple tree from space.
Yeah, exactly. And so how they actually learn to do that is through a process called training.
Okay.
You essentially feed the CNN a massive data set of labeled images, telling it what each image shows, and the algorithm then analyzes these images, looking for patterns and features that distinguish one type of image from another.
So if I showed it a million pictures of corn.
Right, it would be like, okay, that's corn.
Exactly. And over time, it learns to recognize these patterns and can then apply that knowledge to new unseen images.
So it's like teaching a child to recognize objects.
Exactly. And the more data the CNN is exposed to, the better it gets at recognizing those patterns and making accurate predictions.
So these CNNs are like the brains behind all this cool Agritech stuff we've been talking about.
They play a huge role for sure, and the applications are constantly expanding as the technology continues to evolve.
Well, this is definitely blowing my mind. I'm starting to feel like I need to go back to school and get like a degree in computer science just to understand how my food is being grown these days.
Yeah, it's pretty remarkable.
But in all seriousness, this is really cool stuff, and I'm glad we're talking about it.
Me too.
So I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive.
Yeah.
We've explored this fascinating world of satellite imagery, AI. We delved into the intricacies of blockchain and traceability, and even touched on the power of automatic optimization.
It's been quite a journey so far.
It has been.
So stay tuned, folks, because in the next part of our deep dive, we're going to delve even deeper into some specific examples of how this technology is being used.
Yeah, some real-world applications.
In the real world. So buckle up. It's going to be a wild ride.
It is. Welcome back to the show.
Okay, so we left off talking about all these amazing things that are happening in the world of Agritech.
Yeah, we were just scratching the surface.
So where do we go from here? I mean, what else is out there that's blowing your mind?
Well, let's go back to that idea of using deep learning and CNNs to analyze those satellite images.
Okay.
Remember we talked about how these algorithms can be trained to recognize different types of crops and even signs of disease or stress?
Right, like having that AI crop doctor in space keeping an eye on everything.
Exactly. Well, one company that's doing some really innovative work in this area is Pivotal.
Okay.
In partnership with OG Group.
Okay.
They're using a combination of satellite imagery, AI, and ecological data to create a really comprehensive picture of a site's ecological status.
Wow.
Think of it like an ecological X-ray.
So they're not just looking at the crops, they're looking at like the whole ecosystem.
Yes, they're gathering data on everything from vegetation and soil to water and wildlife.
Wow.
This information can then be used to inform land management and conservation decisions,
Okay.
helping to protect biodiversity and ensure the long-term health of the ecosystem.
So it's not just about, growing more food. It's about
Right.
protecting the planet.
It's about making informed decisions that minimize the environmental impact of development.
It's amazing. Um, can you give me a specific example of how this works in the real world?
Sure. Let's say a company wants to develop a piece of land for a new project.
Yeah.
Before they start digging and building, they can work with Pivotal to create a detailed ecological assessment of the site.
Okay.
This assessment would use satellite imagery to analyze the types of vegetation present, identify areas of high biodiversity, and even pinpoint potential habitats for endangered species.
Oh, wow. So it's like, before you build that shopping mall, you make sure that you're not destroying
Exactly.
like a critical habitat.
Exactly. It's about being proactive and minimizing the impact.
I like that.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. But what about, areas that have already been damaged?
Yeah.
I mean, can we use this technology to restore ecosystems that have been degraded?
That's a great question, and it leads us to another fascinating example of Agritech in action, drone-based reforestation.
Oh yeah, we touched on this earlier. I love this one.
It's pretty amazing, right?
So tell me more.
So companies like Biocarbon Engineering are using drones to plant trees in areas that have been deforested or degraded.
Right.
These drones can carry thousands of seed pods and plant them with incredible precision.
So it's like a little
Yeah.
tree planting army.
It is, and they
Very-
can cover vast areas in a fraction of the time that it would take humans.
But how do they make sure that the trees actually grow? I mean, are they just dropping seeds from the sky?
Yeah, there's more to it than just scattering seeds. These companies are using advanced technology to ensure the highest possible survival rate.
Okay.
For example, the drones are equipped with sensors that analyze the soil and topography,
Okay.
helping to identify the best locations for planting, and the seed pods themselves are often coated with a special nutrient-rich gel that helps protect the seeds and promote growth.
Oh wow, that's really cool. So they've thought of everything.
They're trying to, it's a pretty sophisticated system.
Yeah, it sounds like it. What about the costs though? I mean, drones aren't cheap, are they?
They can be expensive, but the cost is coming down rapidly as the technology becomes more widely available.
Okay.
And when you compare the cost of drone-based reforestation to traditional methods, which often involve manual labor and heavy machinery,
Right.
it can actually be quite competitive, especially when you consider the speed and efficiency of drones.
And plus, more trees means
Yeah,
less carbon dioxide,
right.
which is good for everybody.
Absolutely. Reforestation is a critical part of combating climate change, and drones are playing an increasingly important role in these efforts.
Oh, okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Now, what about the bees? Remember we were talking about biodiversity?
Oh, yes.
The company that's using beehives to monitor biodiversity.
Yeah, that was a really interesting one.
Yeah, so how does that actually work? I mean, do they have little tiny scientists in there collecting data for them?
Not quite, but bees are amazing bioindicators.
Okay.
They're highly sensitive to changes in their environment, and by analyzing the pollen they collect, we can get a really good picture of the plant diversity and overall health of an ecosystem.
So it's kind of like having a network of
Yeah,
tiny little environmental sensors.
exactly. They're flying around collecting data for us.
That's so cool.
It is, and this information can be used for a variety of purposes, from monitoring the impact of pollution to tracking the spread of invasive species.
So it's like a win-win for everybody.
Yeah.
Bees get to do their thing, and we get valuable data. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about agentic marketing.
Yes,
Remember we were talking about how companies are using technology to communicate their sustainability efforts
right.
and connect with consumers who care about these issues?
Yes, it's about transparency and authenticity.
Right.
Using technology to tell the story behind the product and build trust with consumers.
Exactly. Okay, so can you give me an example of a company that's doing this really well?
Yeah, one company that's doing this really well is Katona Climate in partnership with Chloris Geospatial.
Okay, I've never heard of them. What are they doing?
They're working on carbon credits.
Carbon credits. Okay, I have to admit, I'm a little fuzzy on that whole carbon credit thing.
Yeah, it's a complicated topic, but essentially carbon credits are a way to put a price on reducing greenhouse gas emissions.
Okay.
Companies that emit a lot of carbon dioxide can offset their emissions by investing in projects that remove carbon from the atmosphere, like planting trees or restoring wetlands. These projects generate carbon credits, which can then be traded or sold to companies that need to offset their own emissions.
So it's kind of like a way to balance out the bad stuff they're doing.
Yeah, it's a way to create a financial incentive for reducing carbon pollution.
Okay, that makes sense. So where do Katona Climate and Chloris Geospatial fit into all of this?
They're using advanced technology, including satellite imagery and AI, to monitor these carbon offset projects and ensure that they are actually delivering the promised emissions reductions.
So they're kind of like the watchdogs.
Yeah, exactly. They're making sure that the carbon credits are legit and that the money is going where it's supposed